my list out too. So
Cool. Well, so let's jump right into the list then. So the first thing I want to talk about is my major updates to the basketball card rankings at nooffseason.com. My number one topic is Anthony Edwards. I've moved Anthony Edwards up to the top of the list. He was outside of the top 10. As we know, winning drives a lot of the card market, probably tied with hype, I would say. And there's been hype about Anthony Edwards in his career. He's had some ups and downs related to hype. And he hasn't really seen the ups related to winning yet. And that's where I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves could be next year's Memphis Grizzlies with Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns coming back on a Supermax deal. We know what that does to the confidence of some of these young guys. And now Rudy Gobert. Talk to me, Gary. What do you think? Am I crazy for moving Anthony Edwards up to number one?
Okay, Paul, that was the first thing I wrote looking at your basketball card rankings was I agree. Anthony Edwards, I agree with him at number one for so many reasons. But I also did see Hustle, that movie with Adam Sandler in the NBA. So Anthony as Kermit. There was some debate about Kermit versus Bo Cruz, like who's really worth the number one pick.
Right.
But that stuff matters. And it's certainly those kind of things that help us see the personality and the energy of Anthony Edwards. A lot of people don't, around the country or world, like set their weekly schedule according to the Minnesota T-Wolves and what they're doing. But he's going to attract that. He is that kind of player that people will go to see his games when he is in town. I think the fact that they have Gobert now and that they have a good, I think they gave up a ton to get him, but they kept enough of a supporting cast that, and they can surround them with some other like guys at the veteran minimum or whatever. I think they're not done with their roster yet, but I think you're right. I think they're going to go as far as the Grizzlies did or further into the playoffs if they can just stay healthy. And as long as Edwards and Rudy, I guess he called Rudy soft or something. Did you hear about this? He's like,
oh, I didn't hear about that.
Nobody's afraid of Gobert when they go into the lane. And it was just something last year where Anthony Edwards talked smack, and now he's on the same team as Gobert. So we'll see how they can get along. But I like him at number one. I really do.
All right. That makes me feel really good because that was a bit of a risk. I feel like I was going, I like to not be Captain Obvious. I have a big time problem with people that are Captain Obvious. I know you do too. You go out on limbs just as much as I do. And so I feel like, very, very confident that you agree with me because I know, I respect your hot takes. You have very, very good hot takes. And so, so I'm glad we're on the same page with that. So, just that was the big one. But I think a couple other things I just want to throw out there to you to get your thought on. And welcome Toa. We love seeing Toa. He's a loyal audience member of the Sports Card Show. So Toa likes to jump in on the live stream. Toa, if you or Steve or anyone else watching have any questions for Gary or I, definitely jump in here. But the next guy to me that really stood out, I actually heard you do an amazing job on Hoops and Cards when this move happened a couple weeks ago, talking about the impact of the real impact on sports cards actually being like the ancillary impact on a trade. And this was DeJounte Murray going to the Hawks. To me, this moves Trey Young up quite a bit because it shows that the Hawks are serious about winning, just like the T-Wolves are showing that they're going to be serious about winning. And adding DeJounte Murray, a guy who can basically play defense for himself and Trey Young, which is kind of I'm paraphrasing you a little bit from your episode. You did a great episode right after this move happened, and you talked about, look, this really impacts some other people, not just DeJounte Murray. So that's my next kind of big one was the impact of that trade on Trey Young's value. I think now this really legitimizes him as a true sports card investment. What's your take on that?
Well, I was hoping there would be more episodes reacting to big trades, but it's been quiet for the last, we're waiting for KD. But when I heard that trade happen, I was, it put Trey Young back on my radar because, a team that's an early elimination from the playoffs or even not even a factor, right? Unless he would have risen up and scored 40 plus a game, they weren't going to advance. But to now have some supporting cast, and that kind of means Trey is a major building block in Atlanta for a long time. Some of these guys, once they get a certain place in their career, they want to be not just the man. They want to be the man in May and June. They want to go to the playoffs. So they start talking about super teams, or they start trying to jockey for trades. I love the trade for Trey Young. I think you're right. His values were way too far down, and he's a good opportunity. I also think DeJounte Murray is a guy most people have not seen for themselves. And I took my son to the NBA All-Star game. Again, Cleveland, we had to represent. But like DeJounte Murray was so impressive on all areas, all aspects of the court, but also as a defender, a dunker, like a guy that he's probably a more well-rounded player than Trey Young. And I was glad to see him. I think he's 15th on your rankings, DeJounte.
Yeah, I think, he's DeJounte Murray. I think, he's 15. You got it, man.
Okay. I love it. I love it, especially because his rookie in 2016 is a little bit harder to find.
Yeah.
So there's still a good investing opportunity, I think, before they start whatever they're building in Atlanta. But if I'm Trey Young or a fan of Trey Young or investor of Trey Young, I'm thinking that kind of solidifies him as a good long-term, buy and hold.
Okay, great. Yeah, and Toa says he thinks the DeJounte Murray trade also helps DeAndre Hunter. That's interesting. I actually moved DeAndre Hunter down in my rankings quite a bit. I do like DeAndre Hunter. I always have. I think he's a super sleeper. I moved him down, though, a little bit because of the DeJounte Murray trade, because I think it's difficult to invest in a at best third option on a team. But do you agree with Toa or I on that one, Gary? What's your take on DeAndre Hunter?
Well, so I was going to ask you that same question, like from a different angle. I wrote on my numbers on your rankings that I was unsure about. I just wrote DeAndre Hunter drop a lot, ?
Yeah.
And some of this kind of depends on how you mean the sports card rankings. For example, DeAndre Hunter's prices for his rookie cards are still very low compared to his potential, and even the way he performed late in the season in the playoffs, those kind of things. So I think he's probably still a good bargain buy, but I agree with not having him in the top 25, as an investment. You're right. He's the third option at best over there. And at the same time, I think we're going to see more of him, in big games, and more of him now that he's going to be healthy for a full season. I think we're going to see a better version of DeAndre. He just won't be the first guy to shoot.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you bring up a good point. Like, how do I look at the rankings? And I think I always come back to, if someone were to look at the rankings, then I feel like they need to immediately represent like how I am recommending that you spend your money. And so that's number one. And in that context, I'm basically saying, hold off on spending your money on DeAndre Hunter. Now, on the other hand, like I'm basically saying there are X amount guys better to spend your money on. But
Sure.
On the other hand, to Toa's point and to your point, DeAndre Hunter being basically having low bargain basement pricing right now, when you upgrade to the sports card investment report, you get all of the profiles, you get all of the information within the profile.
Right.
So that's a different context. When you're reading DeAndre Hunter's profile, you're going to see he definitely is a good bargain buy. And so while there may be X amount more guys that I'm saying like off the top, quick hitter, many more guys that I'd put your money into, if you are looking at DeAndre Hunter in a vacuum, that's where you've got to go into his profile and try to figure out, is he a good buy now? And I think like probably August, you talk about August as being bad buying season. We're almost there. We're maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe, 2.5, 3 weeks away from DeAndre Hunter being a good buy now. So Toa and everybody wondering about DeAndre Hunter, I hope that helps answer your question. So Gary, let's move on to 2 other guys that I want to talk to you about. First, Zion Williamson. He moved up quite a bit. I've been outspoken, I guess, on Zion. My stance is that all things considered, you have a monster talent returning to a now much improved team. And the New Orleans Pelicans are in my top 3, ready to make a jump in the West compared to this past season. One of them was the Timberwolves in no particular order, which I talked about a second ago. Next up is the Pelicans. And before we get to my next guy who's on the third team, let's talk about Zion. What's your take on Zion moving up in the rankings? He moved up significantly from 24 to 12.
Yeah, and I think he got a huge vote of confidence from his team, and as a result from us in the card market when he got that extension, right? I mean, they're paying him as if he were healthy. They're paying him as much as you possibly could, and so I feel a little bit more positive about him after that signing, and I also feel like I said this on an episode recently where we covered, like, if you're feeling risky, like he would be a little more of a high cost investment, a riskier investment than, say, a DeAndre Hunter or Jaren Jackson or Miles Bridges, like some guys that might have a chance to come back after being out for a while. Zion's been out for a long time, and his cards are still more expensive than most, but the upside is tremendous, right?
Yeah.
If you look at how far down his silver prisms are right now compared to when they, last season, he was up into the thousands of dollars for those kinds of cards. Now you can probably get something. I think it's just now might be your time to get an affordable Zion with skyrocket potential. Personally, I don't love that much risk when I've got other guys on the board that I would rather put my money into, and I might be leaving some profits on the table. I get that, but I'm probably a little bit more, I can say I like him, but I'm more conservative with my own dollars.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a very good analysis of Zion. I think it all depends on your risk tolerance. If you have a high risk tolerance, I think he's a guy who could definitely pay off. And if you're avoiding him altogether, that's great. I think probably there's a lot of people that are waiting to unload him, and good for those people. I would unload him after he debuts, and the first time he lights up the scoreboard and the stat sheet. You can upload them and you can feel good about that. All right. Yeah. So we've actually got Derpy Gaming has chimed into the live chat. Thank you so much. Derpy has brought to our attention some breaking news here on the Basketball Card Strategy Show.
Is that a Woj bomb? We got a Derpy bomb over here dropping the news.
Derpy bomb. Shout out Derpy bomb. He's apparently our Woj. Woj has reported on Twitter that restricted free agent center Deandre Ayton has agreed to a 4-year, $133 maximum offer sheet with the Indiana Pacers. His agents have reported this to Woj. The Phoenix Suns have 48 hours to match the largest offer sheet in NBA history. So this tweet is obviously trending right now. It's like 7,000 quote tweets and counting. Derpy Gaming says Deandre Ayton to the Pacers. Not yet. Not yet. The Suns have 48 hours to match.
Yeah, and Paul, I'm one of my friends, Sam Amico, who covers at 48minutes.com. He's covered the NBA for a long time. He said it looks like the Pacers are working on a deal that would involve Miles Turner. Like, this could turn into a sign and trade. So the Phoenix doesn't just let him walk. They got to get some assets. And Miles Turner would fit awesome in Phoenix again if he could stay healthy. But Ayton to Pacers.
Yeah. Not sure. I mean, I think like that would be something that we're definitely going to flush out probably on Hoops and Cards. You're probably going to be the first to jump in and talk about what the impact of that would be. So stay tuned to subscribe to Gary's show, Hoops and Cards, and stay tuned to see what he says there, and then we'll cover it at no offseason. Obviously, if and when this movement does happen, we'll update our player profile. So check back at nooffseason.com. We'll take some audience questions here in a second. We've got some good ones coming in, but first, I just want to hit on my third guy. My third guy moving up quite a bit is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is on that third team in the Western Conference that I expect to jump from, and that's the Clippers. Ty Lue, respect to Ty Lue. He's known as one of the more underrated X and O's guys in all of professional sports. What he does with the clipboard is pretty impressive. And then obviously Paul George and John Wall joining the team. Already talented team. They don't need John Wall. All they really need is a healthy Kawhi back, and they're an instant contender. What's your overall feeling on Kawhi Leonard cards, Gary?
I have several Kawhi Leonard cards on my eBay watch list. You know how you can get notifications when they pop up at a certain price? He's the guy over the last 3 weeks that I have targeted because I see his 2012 rookies as one of the lowest they've ever been, but also one of the best buys overall in NBA basketball cards, like for current players. And I hesitate to say this, part of me is still selfish, Paul. I want to be like, don't talk about Kawhi Leonard. Like he's still Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
I think it's easy. We forget how good that guy was not that long ago. And I think we all thought he would be coming back, at some point last season, and he never did. But, you can't guarantee some guys will come back to play after a year out of the league. They'll come back and play to what they formerly were. But it's Kawhi Leonard. Like, he's a man. He knows who he is. And John Wall signing with them, to me, was a vote of confidence for what kind of shape Kawhi is in. Like, I bet Kawhi and Paul had a phone call with John and said, hey, dude, like, we like Reggie Jackson. We need a stud over here. Like, we need you. You can still do this. He could still be 20-10, John Wall. And Kawhi Leonard could still be an MVP candidate. And even if he's not, his legacy is borderline GOAT. I didn't say, I'd say he's a borderline GOAT for me. And again, he's Kawhi Leonard at the cheapest prices I've ever seen. So I love him. If I was doing my basketball card rankings and it was kind of like you are with, what players and what players card markets, he would be in my top 5.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, we're on the same page with Kawhi then, because, you make a good point with the fallback, like the safety net is that he's still a GOAT. So right. Even if he doesn't have moments that I think he really could have this upcoming season and in the playoffs, then he's still a GOAT. But I do really think that the Kawhi's going to have some moments in the playoffs that are going to drive up his cards. I think his cards are pretty cheap. Compared to some of the other players. So, I mean, just a quick recap, like Ant-Man, I think has the highest ceiling. That's why he's number 1. We've still got Giannis and Steph up there, LeBron, Luka, Ja, LaMelo, Darius, then Trey, I think has a higher ceiling. Booker, Tatum, Zion, Durant, Cade, DeJounte, and Kawhi at 16. So I don't know that Kawhi has like such a high ceiling as the other guys, but I think he has the highest floor, one of the highest floors. He's the least risky maybe out of a lot of those guys. And I think that he also, still has the opportunity to have some big spikes. So that's why I like Kawhi.
Yeah. And Paul, another thing I did this week was trying to think through the GOATs. I broke it down into 5-year chunks. Like who might be the closest GOAT from 80 to 85, 90 to 95, that they entered the league in those years. And when I did like the 2010 to 2015, I came up with Giannis as the top guy and Kawhi a very close second, like just overall. And that's part of why I like him. Isn't just what he could do or what he's already done. It's the fact that his rookie cards are a bit older and harder to get. And a lot of the stuff lately is overprinted. So
and this is a total hypothesis, but what we could see happen in this perceived down market, and I say perceived in air quotes because everyone's talking about it being a down market, and that's true in a lot of cases, but it's also not true in a lot of other cases. And so, but in a perceived down market, I think we start to see maybe some shift back to like the KGs and the AIs and the Vince Carters and some of those guys that are a little bit more known commodities versus some of the prospects that people have invested in over the last, like maybe when the market's been up. And so Kawhi fits that perfectly, right? He fits like he's basically like a Paul Pierce or like, like he fits into that, like not super exciting, but definitely like a solid fan base, like championship level, like a Ray Allen championship level player. So anyway, Kawhi's legacy still being written, and that makes him exciting.